I have spent 99 years watching bright young men and women walk into the slaughterhouse. They get a degree from a prestigious university, they get a title that sounds important, and they turn their brains off. They think they have won the game. In reality, they just signed a contract to be a remarkably high-paid serf. You believe that a steady job with a good salary is safety. You have been trained by your parents, by your professors, and by the culture at large to believe that climbing the corporate ladder is the same thing as building wealth. It is not. It is simply running faster on a treadmill that someone else owns. If you stop working today, right now, does your income continue? If the answer is no, you are not wealthy. You are fragile. You are one corporate restructuring, one bad quarter, or one angry boss away from total ruin. You are capitalizing someone else's compound interest while your own time decays into nothingness. Let us look at the history of this delusion so you understand how deep the rot goes. Go back to 1929. Look at the well-dressed clerks in New York City. These were men who had steady jobs, good salaries, and nice suits. They thought the market would go up forever, and their jobs were secure. In October of that year, the floor fell out. It wasn't just the stock market that crashed. It was the labor market. Men who had spent 20 years loyal to a firm found themselves on the street corner selling apples not because they were incompetent, but because the system they relied on had collapsed. They had no assets, they had no ownership. They only had a salary, and when the salary vanished, they were destitute. They had outsourced their survival to a corporation that did not love them back. Now, look at the biology of why you fall for this. Your brain is not designed for the modern economy. Your brain is designed for the savannah. In the Paleolithic era, safety was belonging to the tribe. If you were kicked out of the tribe, you were eaten by a lion or you froze to death. So, you have a biological imperative to conform, to seek a steady role, to not rock the boat. The idea of going it alone or building equity triggers a fear response in your amygdala that feels like death. You crave the bi-weekly paycheck because it mimics the resource sharing of the tribe. It feels safe. But in the modern world, this instinct is a suicide pact. The tribe is not going to save you. The tribe will lay you off via a Zoom call to save 3 cents on earnings per share. Consider the modern scenario. Imagine a man named David. It is 2024. David is a vice president at a tech company. He makes $300,000 a year. He feels rich. He leases a luxury SUV. He has a mortgage on a house that is too big. He sends his kids to private school. He thinks he is a capitalist. He is not. He is a high-consumption wage slave. One Tuesday morning, he tries to log into his email. The password doesn't work. A calendar invite pops up for a meeting with HR. 10 minutes later, David is unemployed. He has 0 streams of income. He has 3 months of savings and 30 years of lifestyle bloat. The panic that sets in is not just financial, it is existential. He realizes, too late, that he never owned anything. He was just renting a lifestyle. This is the fate of the employee who refuses to think like an owner. It is not entirely your fault. The internal enemy is strong. You are addicted to the dopamine hit of the monthly deposit. You are biologically wired to prefer the predictable misery of a wage over the scary variance of ownership. This is a cognitive defect known as hyperbolic discounting. You value the immediate safety of the paycheck today more than the massive, delayed payoff of building equity 10 years from now. You are acting like a peasant in the Middle Ages, thankful for the scraps from the Lord's table, instead of trying to own the land. You look at the volatility of the stock market or the risk of starting a business and you run away, back to the safety of the cubicle. But you are miscalculating risk. The risk of the cubicle is total. The risk of ownership is managed. Let me give you a historical example of this psychological failure. Look at the South Sea Bubble in the 1700s. Even Isaac Newton, one of the smartest men who ever lived, lost a fortune. He could calculate the motions of the heavenly bodies, but he could not calculate the madness of people. He bought in, saw the price rise, sold, and then watched his friends get richer. The envy ate him alive. He bought back in at the top and lost everything. He was a genius, but he had the emotional control of a child. He could not handle the variance. He needed the immediate gratification of being part of the herd. If Newton can be ruined by his own biology, do you think you are immune? You are not. Biologically, your brain treats financial loss the same way it treats physical pain. A drop in your portfolio or a failed business venture lights up the same neural pathways as being punched in the stomach. This makes you risk-averse in a way that is mathematically stupid. You will stay in a job you hate for 40 years because the pain is dull and constant, which is bearable, rather than facing the sharp, acute pain of breaking free, which is terrifying. You are choosing a slow death over a chance at life because your caveman brain thinks the unknown is a predator. Imagine a modern dentist. He is intelligent, capable, and makes a high income. But he cannot sit still. He sees his neighbor making money in cryptocurrency. He feels that itch. He doesn't understand the underlying asset. He just sees the price moving. He takes his hard-earned savings, his freedom money, and throws it into a speculative coin because he cannot stand the boredom of slow compounding. He checks his phone every 5 minutes. The line goes up, he feels a rush. The line goes down, he feels sick. He is not an investor. He is a gambler in a lab coat. He is dopamine dependent. He will eventually lose it all because he is playing a game he doesn't understand against algorithms that have no emotions. He is feeding his amygdala, not his bank account. The solution requires a complete rewiring of your mind. I am not telling you to quit your job tomorrow. That is stupid. I am telling you to psychologically fire yourself as an employee and rehire yourself as the CEO of a holding company called You, Incorporated. Survival requires you to stop renting out your time and start owning the output. This begins with the first pillar, the mental switch, or inversion. Stop asking, how can I get a raise? That is the wrong question. Start asking, how can I become difficult to replace? And how can I own a piece of the result? Invert the problem. This is how I solve everything. If you want to help India, the question is not, how can I help India? The question is, what is doing the most damage to India? And then you stop doing that. So, how do you guarantee poverty? You guarantee poverty by being a fungible commodity. If you can be replaced by a recent graduate, a piece of software, or a worker overseas, you are doomed. Therefore, to get rich, you must become a specific monopoly. You must acquire skills that are rare and valuable in combination. Do not just do the task. Understand the entire business model. Act like an owner, even if you don't own shares yet. Look at the history of Charles Darwin. He was a master of inversion. He tried to disprove his own theories. He looked for the evidence that would kill his ideas. In your career, you must look for the evidence that your job is obsolete. Don't hide from it, find it. If you are a truck driver, look at autonomous vehicles. If you are a copywriter, look at artificial intelligence. Don't be the horse screaming that the automobile is a fad. Be the guy who opens the gas station. Adaptation is the only safety. Biologically, you have to fight your instinct to specialize in just one narrow thing. An ant specializes. A human being should be able to do everything. In nature, the hyper-specialized animal dies when the environment changes. The koala eats only eucalyptus leaves. If the eucalyptus dies, the koala dies. The rat eats anything. The rat survives. You want to be the rat, not the koala. You want a mental flexibility that allows you to pivot when the market shifts. Consider the modern graphic designer. She spends 10 years perfecting her craft in Photoshop. She is an artist. Then, an AI image generator comes out that can do 80% of her work in 3 seconds. If she defines herself only as a Photoshop user, she is dead. Her value drops to 0. But if she defines herself as a visual communicator who understands marketing psychology, branding, and business strategy, the AI becomes her tool, not her replacement. She creates the prompt, she owns the output, she inverted the threat and turned it into leverage. She stopped being a tool and became the hand that wields it. The second pillar is capital allocation. This is where most of you fail miserably. A business takes its profits and reinvests them to grow. An employee takes their wages and buys consumer trash. The first rule of compounding is to never interrupt it unnecessarily. If you eat your seed corn, you will starve in winter. You must treat your salary as revenue, not spending money. You must aggressively strip out costs or what we call lifestyle creep and deploy every cent of free cash flow into productive assets. Stocks, real estate, businesses, things that pay you while you sleep. Look at Benjamin Franklin. He was the grandfather of this country's financial wisdom. He understood that a penny saved is not just a penny earned, it is a seed for a money tree. He didn't spend his money on wigs and carriages to impress the French court until he could afford it 10 times over. He lived below his means so he could buy his freedom. He understood that money is condensed time. Every dollar you waste on nonsense is a piece of your life you are setting on fire. Biologically, we are wired to consume when resources are available because the future is uncertain. The squirrel buries nuts because it has an instinct that winter is coming. Humans have lost this instinct. We have credit cards that allow us to eat the nuts we haven't even gathered yet. This is madness. You are borrowing against your future labor. You are enslaving your future self to pay for the pleasures of your present self. You are stealing from the old version of you to entertain the young version of you. It is a crime against your own life. Imagine a young couple in 2024. They make a combined income of $200,000. They feel rich. They buy a Tesla. They go to Tulum for the weekend. They eat out 5 nights a week. They subscribe to 8 streaming services they don't watch. At the end of the month, they have saved 0. They are running on a hamster wheel made of gold, but it is still a hamster wheel. Now imagine their friend, who makes half as much but saves 50%. He buys boring index funds. He drives a 10-year-old Toyota. He cooks at home. Let me walk you through the narrative math. Year 1, the saver has $20,000. It looks pathetic. The spenders laugh at him. Year 5, he has $120,000. The curve is flat. It feels like grinding. Year 10, the curve bends. The interest is now earning interest. He has $250,000. Year 20, he has $1 million. The spenders are still living paycheck to paycheck, terrified of a recession. The saver is free. He has bought his life back. The math does not care about your feelings. It only cares about consistency. The third pillar is the latticework of mental models. An employee is a tooler hammer looking for a nail. An owner is a Swiss Army knife. To the man with a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. This is disastrous. You must learn accounting, psychology, history, and probability. You need a latticework of models in your head. You don't have to be an expert in everything, but you must understand the big ideas from the big disciplines. If you don't know accounting, you don't know the language of business, and you are like a man trying to write poetry without knowing the alphabet. Look at the Renaissance. Leonardo da Vinci was not just a painter, he was an engineer, an anatomist, a botanist. He studied how water flowed to understand how to paint hair. He studied how muscles connected to bone to understand how to paint a smile. He transferred knowledge from one domain to another. This is where genius comes from. It comes from synthesis. In the modern world, you are told to stay in your lane. I am telling you to drive across the entire highway. Biologically, your brain is plastic. It can learn new tricks until the day you die. But most people stop learning at age 22. They get the diploma and they stop reading. They let their mental muscles atrophy. This is a tragedy. You must force your brain to grapple with new concepts. Learning physics helps you understand economics. Learning biology helps you understand markets. Everything is a complex, adaptive system. If you only know one model, you will torture reality to make it fit that model, and you will make terrible decisions. Consider a doctor who is brilliant at surgery but ignorant of finance. He spends 40 years saving lives and making money, but he doesn't understand probability or valuation. He gets a tip from a friend at the golf course about a hot real estate deal. He puts his life savings into a strip mall in a dying town because he doesn't know how to read a balance sheet or analyze demographic trends. He loses it all. He was a genius with a scalpel and a fool with a checkbook. His specialized knowledge was useless outside the operating room. If he had a latticework of mental models, he would have seen the risk. He would have recognized the folly. Now, we must navigate the minefield. There are traps waiting for you. The first is the status trap, fueled by envy. You buy a BMW to impress people at the office who you don't even like. Envy is the only deadly sin that is no fun at all. Gluttony is fun for a while. Lust is fun. Envy is 100% pain. It is the feeling that someone else has something you deserve. It rots your soul and it drains your wallet. You must cultivate an indifference to what your neighbors have. If you cannot control your envy, you cannot be wealthy. You will spend your capital trying to look rich instead of becoming rich. The second minefield is specialized ignorance. You become so good at one tiny thing that you are useless outside of your specific cubicle. When the technology shifts, you are obsolete. You must be a learning machine. You must go to bed every night a little wiser than when you woke up. If you do that for 50 years, the snowball gets very big. If you don't, you will be left behind. The world changes. If you are standing still, you are moving backward. The third minefield is selling your upside. This is the cardinal sin of the employee. You trade 40 years of your life for a fixed fee, giving the infinite upside of your labor to shareholders. Stop capping your own potential. If you generate $10 million of value for a company and they pay you $100,000, you are being robbed. You must find a way to align your compensation with your output. Equity, commission, ownership. Do not settle for a flat rate on a variable outcome. The world is full of successful employees who are one paycheck away from panic. Do not be one of them. The goal is not a higher salary. The goal is independence. The goal is to wake up in the morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. That is the only success that matters. Money is just the tool to get there. Making money is not the hard part. Keeping it, and not going crazy while you wait for it to grow, is the hard part. You need patience. You need the ability to suffer through boredom. You need the discipline to do nothing when everyone else is running around like headless chickens. The market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient. Be the patient one. The final reality is death. You are going to die. I am 99 years old. I know this better than anyone. When you are in the ground, your job title will not matter. Your expensive car will be driven by someone else. The only thing that remains is what you built and who you helped. But to build something and to help people, you need resources. You need freedom. You cannot help anyone if you are drowning in debt and chained to a desk. So, sit on your ass. Read, save, wait. Let the compounding do the heavy lifting. Build a fortress of independence so strong that the world cannot touch you. That is the only way to win.